Have you ever received a package that wasn't meant for you? Or at least, that's what you told yourself at first. Have you ever held something in your hands that felt wrong? Like it carried a story you were never supposed to touch? I used to think lost mail was nothing more than an inconvenience, a simple mistake, easily returned or ignored. But the package I received last Christmas, the one that arrived with no name, no sender, no return label, that one changed my entire belief about what people can send through the mail, and about what can come looking for it after. My name is Daniel. I'm 32 years old. I live alone in a small town outside Columbus, Ohio, and last Christmas was supposed to be the first peaceful holiday I had in years. No work calls, no emergencies, no rushing between relatives. Just a quiet week off, hot chocolate, some old movies, and maybe a little snow if the weather cooperated. I had been looking forward to it since October, but 5 days before Christmas, something arrived at my doorstep that wasn't on any list. No delivery truck, no mailman, no tire tracks on the snow leading up to my porch. Just a plain cardboard box, the size of a shoebox, sitting perfectly centered against my front door. And from the moment I saw it, there was something wrong with it. The first thing I noticed was the cold. You know how cardboard feels warm from being in a delivery truck? This one felt like it had been left outside in freezing wind for hours, but the snow around it wasn't melted or disturbed. It was perfectly untouched. No footprints, no signs of anyone who could have placed it there. My street has a doorbell camera. I checked the footage. Nothing. One moment the porch was empty. The next moment the box was there, like someone had blinked it into existence. I knelt down slowly. A faint smell came off the box. Something old, damp, like an attic that hadn't been opened in years, or wet wood, or something rotting deep inside the walls of a forgotten basement. It was subtle, but it clung to the cold air like a warning. There was no shipping label, no stamp, no handwriting, no branding, just blank cardboard, sealed with a single strip of dark tape. Not the usual beige color, something older, almost like cloth tape from decades ago. I should have left it outside. I should have thrown it in the trash. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, and Christmas tends to soften your instincts. Maybe it was from a neighbor. Maybe a friend had sent something as a surprise. Maybe someone made a mistake, so I brought it inside. The moment I closed the door behind me, something shifted. It was a tiny pressure in the air, like the room changed temperature, not sharply, but subtly, like stepping into a quiet chapel or an abandoned hospital corridor. A cold that didn't come from the winter outside. I placed the box on my kitchen table. The smell intensified just a little. Damp, rotten, metallic, like something wet that had been sealed for too long. My stomach turned, but I forced myself to open it. The tape peeled off almost too easily. Inside, under a layer of old crumpled newspaper, something stared back at me. A mask. A Christmas mask. The kind you might see in an old holiday parade or a winter carnival decades ago. Hand-carved wood, painted white, with faded red cheeks and a long, exaggerated smile. The eyes were hollow but shaped like teardrops, making the expression look wrong, like it was both happy and mourning at the same time. It looked old. Very old. The paint cracked, the wood discolored, and when I lifted it, it felt heavier than it should, like something inside the wood resisted being touched. The inside of the mask had scratches. Long, deep scratch marks, not random ones. Parallel lines like fingernails dragging desperately from the top down toward the mouth opening. My hands shook as I held it up to the light. Who would send this? And why? I texted my sister, joking that someone had sent me the world's creepiest antique. She called me immediately. "Please tell me you didn't put that thing on," she said. "Of course I didn't," I answered, though the thought had crossed my mind for half a second, and it made me feel sick to admit it even to myself. I told her I had no idea who sent it, and she told me to throw it away. Not tomorrow. Now. But I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe because it felt wrong to toss something that looked handmade. Maybe because part of me needed to understand where it came from. Or maybe because the mask felt like it was waiting. for something or someone. A tapping noise. Tap, 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 coming from the kitchen. I sat up in bed listening. The heater wasn't on. The house was still. My dog had passed away months earlier. There was no reason for any noise. Tap, tap, tap. 3 slow taps. Then silence. I tried to convince myself it was the house settling. Winter air, pipes, anything. 10 minutes passed before I gathered the courage to get up and walk down the hall. The kitchen was dark, the cold was stronger, and the smell, that damp, rotten smell, it was thicker now. I reached for the light switch. The mask was no longer on the table. My heart punched my ribs. I scanned the room desperately, and then I saw it. The mask was on the floor, face down, as if someone had picked it up, examined it, and then dropped it. I backed away, adrenaline rushing so hard that my fingertips tingled. I grabbed a flashlight from the drawer and approached the mask slowly. The inside of the mask was damp, and the scratch marks looked deeper, fresh, like someone had scraped at it recently, like fingernails had torn through the wood again. I didn't sleep at all that night. I spent the day researching old holiday masks. Most were harmless traditions, but there were stories, regional legends from the Appalachian Mountains, told quietly, often only by older generations. Stories about winter visitors, spirits that wandered from house to house during the darkest nights of December. They said these visitors didn't knock. They simply left something behind, something you weren't supposed to open. And if you did open it, they came back for it. I tried to dismiss it as folklore, campfire tales. But the further I dug, the more similarities I found. Anonymous boxes, carved masks, scratches inside, the smell of rot and damp wood, and a warning repeated in nearly every story. Never put the mask on. Never let it touch your face. By evening, I decided I'd had enough. I was going to throw it out, not in my trash bin, but in the dumpster behind my building. I put on gloves, grabbed the mask, and placed it back inside the box. My hands trembled the whole way, but as soon as I stepped out into the hallway, everything went silent. The air felt heavier, like someone was standing behind me, watching. I hurried. Outside, the snow had begun to fall, soft and steady. I reached the dumpster, lifted the lid, and tossed the package in. The sound it made when it hit the bottom was wrong. Too loud, too heavy, like something alive had landed. I closed the lid hard, wiped my hands on my jacket, and went back upstairs, trying to shake the feeling that something wasn't over. That night was worse. Tap, tap, tap. But this time, it came from the hallway outside my bedroom. I froze in bed, barely breathing. Tap, tap, behind my door. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I didn't even dare blink. The tapping stopped. And then I heard something drag down the hallway. Slowly. A scraping sound, like wood being pulled across the floor. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my phone, locked myself in the bathroom, and called my friend Lucas. He lived 15 minutes away. He heard the panic in my voice and came right over, burst through my front door, and searched the entire apartment. He said no one was inside, no footprints in the snow outside. Nothing moved, but the smell. He caught it instantly. "Dude, what is that?" Lucas asked, covering his mouth. I wanted to tell him everything, but I didn't want to sound insane. So I only told him a little. Enough to get him to stay the night on my couch. For a few hours, it was quiet. Around 4:20 in the morning, we both woke up to the same sound. A knock. Not at the door, at the window, but I lived on the second floor. The knocking was slow, rhythmic, heavy, like a fist hitting the glass, dragging slightly between each strike. We didn't move. Neither of us even whispered. When the knocking finally stopped, Lucas turned to me and whispered, "That wasn't normal, man. Call someone. Call anyone." At sunrise, he left. And for the first time, I felt truly alone. I walked outside, stepping carefully in the fresh snow. And that's when I saw it. The package, the same box, sitting perfectly centered on my doorstep again. No footprints leading to it, no signs of anyone placing it there. I felt my entire body lock. My breath disappeared. My chest tightened. The tape was cut open, the lid slightly raised. Inside, the mask was upright, facing the door, facing me. And the scratches inside the mask had grown so deep they almost pierced the outer wood, like someone had been clawing non-stop all night. Someone desperate, someone trapped. That was the moment I understood. I didn't receive the mask. I accepted it. And now, it wasn't leaving. I called churches. No one could bless an object without knowing its origin. I called a paranormal group. They offered to come after New Year's. I called my sister. She begged me to leave the apartment and stay with her. But I felt like if I left it behind, it would follow me. Or worse, find someone else. For 2 days, I avoided the package. But every night, the tapping returned. The dragging, the knocking at my bedroom window. My sleep was shattered into dozens of moments of terror. On the third night, something new happened. A voice. It wasn't loud. It wasn't human. It was muffled, wet, like someone speaking from underwater. A single word whispered from inside the apartment. Let me. I ran. I grabbed the nearest heavy object, swung it wildly at shadows, tore open every light in the house. I screamed at the walls. I punched the doorframe until my knuckles bled, and when the voice finally stopped, I felt a pull. A physical pull toward the package. It felt like gravity itself shifted, dragging me toward the doorway of the kitchen. I fought it. I clung to the walls. I slid on the floor. My breath came out in panic-strained gasps. And then I found myself standing in front of the box. The lid lifted. Not by my hand, by itself. The mask slowly tilted upward. The smile seemed wider, and the smell poured out like a cloud. I stumbled back, collapsed to the floor, shaking violently. And then something happened that I still can't explain. Footsteps behind me. Slow, heavy, wet. I turned my head an inch, terrified to look but unable to stop myself. In the reflection of the oven door, I saw something standing behind me, tall, thin, wearing the mask, not holding it, wearing it. The long wooden smile twisted unnaturally, the eye holes dripping with something dark. Its body was shadowed, as if the figure was carved out of darkness itself. It leaned forward without making a sound. I bolted. I ran out the door barefoot, down the stairs, across the snow, not stopping until I reached my truck. I drove until my hands stopped shaking enough to dial my sister. I stayed with her for weeks afterward. When I finally returned to my apartment with police officers, ready to report an intruder, the package was gone. The mask was gone. Everything was clean, undisturbed. The apartment smelled normal, like nothing had ever happened. And every Christmas since then, I can't walk past a package without feeling my chest tighten. Because I know somewhere, that mask is still out there. And someday, maybe on another cold, quiet December night, it's going to arrive on someone else's doorstep. A box with no address, a mask with no owner, a package with no return. If you've ever opened something that didn't belong to you, I hope it was just a mistake. Because if it wasn't, if someone meant for you to open it, then all you can do now is pray they're not coming back for it. Thank you for listening to this Christmas horror story. If you want more true-style realistic horror just like this, subscribe to the channel and follow the next episode. And remember, never open a package that wasn't meant for you. I noticed the house for the first time when its single upstairs light flickered violently, like someone trapped inside was signaling me. It was a cold December night, the kind where the air feels sharp enough to cut your lungs. I had just finished a late shift and was walking the long, empty stretch toward my apartment when the light caught my attention. It blinked 3 times, paused, then blinked again. Slow, deliberate, too controlled to be random. I didn't know then that this house would follow me. I didn't know then that it would change something inside me. At first, I tried to shake the feeling off. People's lights flicker, old wiring, faulty bulbs, bad connections. There was no reason for me to stand there in the middle of the street, staring like I expected someone to wave at me. So I walked on. But before I reached the corner, something made me look back. The light wasn't flickering anymore. It was just on, bright, still, watching. I told myself I imagined the pattern. I couldn't afford to be paranoid. Life was hard enough without creating ghosts in the windows. So I turned away and went home. But the next night, it happened again. Same house, same window, same flickering pattern. 3 blinks, pause, 1 blink. I tried to ignore it. I made myself walk home. I didn't sleep well that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the light blinking at me. By the 3rd night, I almost changed my route entirely. I didn't want to see the house again. I didn't want the curiosity to get inside my head. But my apartment was in a direction where there weren't many alternative streets. And it was late. I was tired. I told myself I'd walk fast, not look at the house, and go straight home. That plan lasted exactly 10 seconds. Because when I turned onto that street, the light wasn't just flickering. It was strobing violently, like someone was pounding on the switch inside. It was brighter than usual, almost white instead of yellow. Something was wrong. I don't know why I walked toward it. I should have kept going. I should have minded my own business. But there was a feeling in my stomach. A kind of pressure that pulled me toward the house. I stepped onto the sidewalk in front of it. The yard was dead grass, the windows downstairs covered with wooden blinds, the porch sagging slightly like it hadn't been used in years. There were no signs of Christmas decorations, no wreath, no lights. Nothing that suggested people actually lived there, but someone had to. Someone was turning that switch on and off. Then the light stopped. The window stayed lit, but steady again. No movement, no flicker. The silence was unbearable. A thin whisper of a thought crossed my mind. What if someone really is signaling me? What if they need help? I stepped closer. That was when I saw it. The silhouette. It wasn't clear. It wasn't detailed. Just a dark, faint outline of a head and shoulders standing behind the curtain. Perfectly still, staring down at me. My breath left my body. I couldn't move. I finally forced myself to step back, but as soon as I moved, the light snapped off completely. The house went dark. The silhouette vanished. I woke up at exactly 3:21 in the morning with the strongest feeling that something had been standing at the foot of my bed. The room was too quiet, the air too cold. My door, which I always kept closed, was cracked open an inch. I told myself it was just stress. But the next evening, as I passed the house again, the light blinked the moment I stepped into its view. The window was empty again. I went home faster than usual. I planned not to walk that street anymore. But when you're exhausted and working late shifts, convenience wins over fear. I kept telling myself I'd take a different route tomorrow, but tomorrow never changed. Then came the night when everything escalated. It was snowing. Soft flakes drifting down, making the world look quieter than usual. By then, I had been passing that house for a week. My nerves were stretched thin. I tried not to look at the window, but curiosity is cruel. The light was already on when I turned the corner. Not flickering, not strobing, just on, waiting. I slowed my steps. Something felt different. The air around me was colder than the rest of the street. My breath fogged heavier. My hands felt numb. I stopped in front of the house. The light blinked once, just once, and then the front door creaked open. Not fast, not dramatically, slow, gentle, like someone inside was inviting me. I felt panic rise in my throat. My body wanted to move, but didn't. There was no silhouette this time, no sound from inside, just that open door breathing cold air into the night. I managed to whisper something to myself. Don't go in. I should have left. I should have walked away, but something pulled me forward again. That same pressure in my stomach, that same emotional weight behind the fear. It didn't feel like danger. It felt like someone was pleading with me. I approached the porch. The wood creaked under my feet. The air smelled old. Not rotten, just abandoned. Like the dust of years was waiting on the other side of the threshold. I didn't step inside. I leaned forward just enough to look through the doorway. The interior was dark except for a faint light upstairs, coming from the same window I'd been watching all week. I could see the edge of the staircase, old wallpaper peeling away. A wooden frame on the wall tilted sideways. No signs of recent living. A faint sound drifted down from upstairs. Footsteps, soft, slow, not hostile, more like pacing. Someone was up there. Someone who had been signaling me night after night. I whispered again. "Who's there?" The footsteps paused. Silence. Then the light upstairs clicked off. I stumbled back again, almost falling off the porch. The darkness inside the house felt heavy, like it was breathing. The front door slammed shut so hard the porch rattled. That was enough. I turned and ran. I didn't care how I looked. I didn't stop until I reached my apartment building. But even after I locked my door, after I double-checked the windows, after I turned every light on, I still felt it. That presence. Watching. Waiting. The following day, I decided to report the house. Not as a haunting, not as something supernatural, just as a concern. Maybe someone was in trouble. Maybe there was squatters. Maybe anything. Anything that wasn't the truth I was starting to fear. But when I described the house to the local officer, he frowned like he already knew something wasn't right. He pulled up records. The house had been empty for 12 years. No electricity registered. No active owner living there. And here was the part that made my skin crawl. He said the upstairs light fixture had been removed years ago due to fire damage. There was no bulb. I didn't go back to that street. Not for days. Not for weeks. I changed my route. I changed my schedule. I tried to forget. But a month later, on my way home from a holiday gathering, curiosity pushed me to revisit the street. Just once. Just to confirm the house was dark and dead like it should be. When I reached it, I froze. The light was on, bright as ever. Waiting. And this time, the pattern was different. One long blink. One short blink. One long blink. I didn't stay. I didn't stare. I turned and walked away. Faster this time, my chest tightening with something that wasn't fear anymore. Something like grief. Something like the house wasn't done with me. I still pass the street sometimes. By accident. Or maybe not by accident. Maybe something pulls me there every now and then. The light never blinks now. It just stays on, burning through the window like an unblinking eye. And every time I see it, I feel the same thing in my stomach. Like someone is still inside, still waiting, still trying to reach me. And one day, I know I will have to go back inside. Not because I want to, but because whatever is in that house, whatever has been calling me all this time, has not finished telling its story. And I don't think it will stop until I listen. If you want more stories that slip under your skin, stories that feel like they could happen to you, then stay close. Every week, I take you deeper into the kind of nights most people never talk about. Real encounters, real fear, and moments that stay with you long after the video ends. If you're ready to hear what others are too afraid to remember, you're in the right place.